Well, we're in day 2 of me examining all of the various press conferences or major events happening at E3 2019. And yesterday we covered Electronic Arts. I'll put a link down in the description if you want to go take a look at that. But today we're talking about Microsoft. That's right, Microsoft. They are actually kicking off the press conferences at E3 on Sunday, June 9th at 3 p.m. actually, Central Standard Time. I'll actually be there, so it'll be at 1 p.m. for me in Pacific. That being said, that is the longest press conference in Xbox history at 2 hours long. This was actually leaked by an official Xbox account that happened to have kind of the show listing up on YouTube, and it's 2 hours in length. So we know that it'll be 2 hours long. That is 20 minutes longer than it was last year. So that means they obviously have a lot more to show, which might not be surprising considering that Sony is not present. So without Sony being there, that obviously leaves the door open for Microsoft not just to talk about all their stuff, but also get more third-party companies involved that will be showing at Xbox showcase, whereas they might have previously been showing at Sony's. That being said, there's a lot of things that's going to be happening at this show. One thing we know for sure is they're going to be talking about xCloud, right? Project xCloud is their streaming service. It is a service that potentially could be coming to Nintendo Switch as well. There's been rumors and speculation around that. And it might be tied in with Xbox Live. It might be its own thing. There might be multiple ways to get it. There's rumors surrounding xCloud itself that it will quite literally have every single Xbox One game on it. This is supposedly supposed to include third-party games, so that's interesting. It is supposed to basically be an alternative way to play Xbox games, and you'll obviously be able to play it on Xbox One, but probably also on the next Xbox, probably on phones and tablets and everything else, kind of like what Google Stadia is doing, because really Google Stadia is the big competitor here when it comes to Project xCloud, at least here in 2019. We'll probably get showcase for it, release dates, pricing, all that great stuff. We should learn everything we want to know about it here, maybe even potentially more than we know about Google Stadia at this point. So I'm sure they're going to showcase a large chunk of the show to this. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets 20 minutes to a full half hour just on Project xCloud, because they do truly believe that this is the future of gaming for a lot of consumers, or at least a way to potentially get in a bunch of people who think gaming is too expensive and would be willing to pay a Netflix-like service fee to just have access to all this stuff versus buying different pieces of hardware every few years or what have you. So I do think that this is interesting. I think it's exciting, and I know some of you guys out there might not be excited for the potential of xCloud or game streaming. Some of you probably are excited for the potential of this kind of stuff. But again, this is the kind of the big thing from this conference. As Nintendo fans, you should be looking at it and being like, hey, that could actually come to Switch. So we'll have to wait and see if anything ever comes of that. Obviously, the rumors and speculation out there talk about how Nintendo is kind of talking to Microsoft about it. So we shall see. That being said, we obviously know about the traditional gaming space, the console space, and that Microsoft has no plans to exit that. In fact, they are likely to unveil the next Xbox at this event. Now, I do not think it's going to be a massive unveiling. I don't think they're going to just blow us out, have the physical hardware there in person, and really start tipping the scales, because I don't think the next Xbox is coming until 2020. I don't think it's releasing this year. I think this year they're going to focus on the launch of xCloud. Next year, worry about the next gen system. But I do think, especially in wake of Sony releasing specs and stuff like that for the PlayStation 5, that Microsoft's going to respond in kind. They're going to assure people about the lineup. Some of the games we're going to see at this press conference will probably cross generations, so some will be on the new system, some will also be on Xbox One X and Xbox One, stuff like that. But I do think we're going to find out specs. That's really the big thing. I don't know if we're going to hear price point right now. That's something I think they might save for later. But we are going to probably hear specs. And from what we have heard, from all the rumors out there, is that after the PlayStation 5 specs were unveiled, a lot of Microsoft people kind of breathed a sigh of relief. because they obviously know what the specs in the next Xbox are, and supposedly they're significantly better than what we heard from PlayStation 5. That's what we're hearing out on the street. We'll have to see what actually happens in person, because PlayStation 5 specs already sounded impressive, and it sounds even more impressive after AMD kind of blew out things at Computex over like the past week. Things like about Ryzen, the new gen Ryzen, and how much faster it is, and obviously PCI 4.0 is being shown off, and there's just a lot of exciting things happening in the PC side of things, and a lot of that's going to trickle over into consoles, making PlayStation 5 and the next Xbox both probably really powerful systems. For those of you that care about that kind of thing, the power competition, where the base PlayStation 4 was a little bit more powerful than an Xbox One, but an Xbox One X is more powerful than the PlayStation 4 Pro. It definitely looks like Xbox is going to try to be a little bit ahead in some regards compared to PlayStation 5, but we'll see. Obviously, the final specs aren't out there. Everything's also subject to change. What we heard about PlayStation 5 could have just been dummy specs that they threw out there that they're actually upgrading down the line, and they just don't want to reveal everything. So again, a lot of caveats here, but we're going to be hearing something, and it's going to be officially public, whereas Sony kind of revealed their details behind the scenes and then gave permission for like The Verge and some others to publish those details. This is a full public thing. The whole world's watching, so it's going to be curious to see how they approach the first conversation around the next Xbox. Now, beyond all of that, obviously, is the games, right? I mean, I think the games, at least in my opinion, are the center point of E3. I get that hardware reveals and new service reveals and all that are really exciting things, but none of the hardware and none of the service matters without games. So, we know we're going to see Halo Infinite, right? That's going to be a big showcase because they've already confirmed it's going to be at E3, and that's huge. I mean, Halo is their biggest IP, arguably, and people have been kind of waiting for them to recapture the magic. See, the newer Halo games aren't bad games. I don't know anyone that calls them bad, but they just don't feel like they're recapturing the magic that Halo once did. So we'll have to see if that's possible with Infinite, but even if it doesn't recapture the magic, it's still probably going to be a really good game and definitely a feather in the cap for Microsoft, which is why we keep getting more and more Halo games. Beyond that, we don't really know what else they're for sure going to be showing off. There could be a new Gears game. Obviously, it could be something with Forza, but those are kind of the franchises you always hear about, right? Halo, Gears, Forza. That wouldn't really necessarily instill confidence in consumers, investors, and all that about what Microsoft's doing, because those are the games they've always had. So what else are we going to have, especially after games like Crackdown 3 were kind of a letdown this year? Well, remember, they bought up a whole bunch of studios last year. I think it was like 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. I don't know. They bought a ton of them. And who knows? Maybe they bought more since and they just haven't announced it. So I don't know that we're going to see a lot of games from those studios just yet because it's only been about a year. But I do think we might see some things. One thing that isn't necessarily related to a bio, but is very interesting, is From Software. You guys probably know them because they have made a lot of PlayStation exclusive games. They're apparently teaming with George R.R. Martin, of the Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire fame, for a game. And that game is apparently a brand new IP called Great Rune. This has all been leaked from multiple websites and sources over the past couple weeks. We don't know a ton about the game outside of it taking place in like a Viking kind of Norse mythology sort of situation. That's about it. That's about all we know. But with George R.R. Martin's writing chops behind it, I think that's got some people really excited because obviously he's well known as being arguably one of the greatest fantasy writers of all time. And so him having his mind behind the story arcs that are going to be in this game are pretty interesting. And obviously From Software is basically world-renowned at this point for the quality of games they make. So you take the quality of From Software combined with the storytelling of George R.R. Martin, and then you mix it with, Norse mythology and all that. You can see why people are pretty excited about what this game could be. And this apparently might be an Xbox exclusive, so that is something to watch out for. Don't know if it's next-gen, cross-gen, whatever it is. That apparently is something that is very likely to be shown off at this conference. There's also been one other game that I think you can kind of bank on seeing. Now, again, this kind of goes back to Microsoft's stable of games, and that's the new Fable. Fable 4 was like leaked / whatever, rumored to be in development as far back as 2017. Got more leaks in 2018, and they didn't show it last year, so chances are they're probably going to show it this year. I don't know if it's going to be released this year, but we're probably going to see Fable 4. So again, that's kind of going back to their old stable of games, except Fable, we don't get Fable games as often. So it is nice to see that kind of come back around here and maybe be ready for the next gen or whatever's coming next. Beyond that, it's mostly guesswork at this point. We know like there's a new Battletoads in the works, and that was announced last year, but then we never saw it. Very interesting because Battletoads is amazing. So could potentially see that. There's obviously a slew of indie titles that we could see because Microsoft does, put their flag behind, indies. You can see another Ori game as an example. Ori and the Blind Forest is brilliant. There's still a lot of rumors and speculation that might come to Switch. So again, as a Switch owner, maybe you want to pay attention to some of Microsoft's smaller games, the Cupheads of the world and stuff like that they might show off, because those are the kind of games they clearly don't have an issue letting come to Switch. So obviously pay attention to that as Switch owners, because even if we don't get them day one, we could get them down the line. Beyond that, there's obviously going to be lots of third parties. We haven't talked a ton about third parties here, but you could be seeing a zillion things. The new Assassin's Creed could first be shown here instead of waiting for Ubisoft's conference. That's a real thing that could happen. The first deep look at Call of Duty could be happening here instead of waiting for Activision to do their thing. And that's just, talking about two of the biggest franchises out there. We could be seeing a ton more from a ton of companies that typically might choose to showcase at Sony's instead. More of Borderlands 3, more of really a lot of games. Really just, pick your pick of a multi-platform third-party game. And if it's big enough, it's probably in this press conference, because if they don't have, especially if the company doesn't have a press conference. Give you an example, CD Projekt Red, their new game, Cyberpunk 2077, I mean, that's almost guaranteed to be here because they have nowhere else to show it off at E3. So this is going to be a very exciting conference. This might be the best conference at E3. Microsoft certainly has a unique opportunity in that they don't really have any direct competitors there in terms of platforms, because Sony is gone, and while Nintendo is a competitor, they don't compete in the same way. So I think Microsoft might look at this as, hey, look, we can actually put a flag in the ground and just own this industry for a while. We know PlayStation's going to punch back sometime in the future, of course, but at least for the beginning of summer, Microsoft has a real opportunity here, and I don't think they're going to blow it. I think there might be some fluff and some things they think are exciting that aren't exciting. I think the reaction to Project xCloud, I think, will be the most interesting part of their whole conference, because gamers seem torn on it, right? There are people genuinely excited for the prospect of game streaming, but there's a lot of people that don't ever want to see that reality come. But that reality is happening anyways. So it'll be interesting to see how people react to it. I think price point will obviously be key. Like if it's super cheap, we're talking Xbox Live prices are cheaper. I think that's really going to open people's eyes to what Microsoft can bring in terms of making gaming more widely available for everyone, which I'm all for, even if, you're not into the whole fact that you have to be connected to the internet, you don't own the games, all that stuff. People don't seem to mind it with Netflix. We don't own any of that stuff. So I think that's kind of the general thinking here is, hey, look, you might care about it and you can still buy DVDs and all that stuff, but a large chunk of people really don't care. And I think that's what Microsoft's trying to capture here. That being said, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you guys have some thoughts as well on this Microsoft press conference, what games they might be showing, games you're excited for. One game I didn't even bring up is Age of Empires. There's been kind of like rumors out there that a new Age of Empires is in the work. I love Age of Empires. One of my most, I'll just say it right now, it's probably my top 3 favorite franchises in all of gaming. And we haven't had one in forever. So if they get a new Age of Empires out there on PC, I don't know if they'll talk about it here, but it's a big enough game that they might. They could save it for the PC showcase because PC has like their own thing going on. But honestly, I think that Microsoft might think themselves it's a big enough game that they could show it off here. So remember, it's a Microsoft press conference, not necessarily Xbox press conference. So anything Microsoft does gaming wise could potentially be shown off. So that's kind of my hope to see Age of Empires. But whatever, you guys let me know. What are your hopes? What are your dreams? What are your expectations for the Microsoft E3 2019 press conference? Longest press conference in Microsoft history when it comes to E3. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Remind you to enter our Nintendo Switch Super Smash Bros. Bundle giveaway through the Gleam.io link down in the description. Drop a like, subscribe for more content. If you don't like this video, I'm going to kick your dog. I know. Animal activists out there now are going to get on me. Oh, you're going to go kick my... It's a joke. It's a joke. Okay?